Ladies and gentlemen, as we sit here in the aftermath of last week's major crash and collapse downwards, not only on Bitcoin, but also across the altcoin market and on the S&P 500, we ask the question, is there a path to recovery? And if so, what will it look like? That's what we're looking into today, the path to recovery for Bitcoin, what Bitcoin, cryptocurrency as a whole, and even the S&P 500 needs to do to salvage this situation and make sure it doesn't get worse. Because the reality is we have found support. It's good to see because we have no man's land. I'm calling it no man's land. It's the price region between 74,000 and 86,000 through which we have no historical price action or virtually no historical price action and hence very limited capacity to make predictions within that price region. Luckily, we've found support in the short term on the 200-day simple moving average, which you can see in green. And luckily as well with the short-term developments within that price region, we can start mapping it out a little bit. So it's getting a bit more let's say it's getting a bit less of a no man's land and let's just call it a few people land. That is the cringiest thing I've said in a long time in this channel. But the path to recovery, you need to know about it. I'll try outline it today. Let's get into it. Before we get into it, if you're going to be in the cryptocurrency market, if you're going to buy and sell cryptocurrency, you need to be on a good exchange. You're trusting exchanges to keep your money safe as you hold coins in the wallets on the exchanges. And you're also paying the money in trading fees every time you make a buy or sell. So it's very important that you get on a good exchange, a reliable exchange. And that's why I like the Bitunix exchange. In its 3.5 years of being around in the cryptocurrency market, it has not once ever been hacked before. That's exceptionally good. And if it is hacked, it has security information available, reserves information available, so that you can potentially get reimbursed on your funds that you may lose in a hypothetical hack, which again has not happened yet. On top of this, it is available to every single one of you watching this YouTube video. It is global, non-KYC. You'll have no problem signing up regardless of where you are in the world with no VPN required. That's insanely good for people in the USA specifically these days. And with my referral link down below, you can get an exclusive 15% trading fee discount just with the Wolves of Crypto referral link. So go ahead and use that link down below and get that 15% trading fee discount attached to your account for life, as well as up to $8,000 in rewards. You can see it on the screen right here where I've highlighted just by signing up with my referral link. So check it out if you're interested. Let's get into the content. Alrighty guys, so big crash last week. We know that. Major compression on the Bollinger Bands, the biggest we've seen since the end of the 2022 bull market, led to a very big move to the downside on Bitcoin, about 20% down on Bitcoin, even more so on the Ethereum and the altcoin market. Altcoin market got decimated. But now the question is, where are we, right? We can't just focus on what happened. We have to focus on what might be coming next. We are in a position in which Bitcoin has a pretty bad structure, okay? We have a potential major double top formation. We failed to find support on 86,000 originally, which is this white line on the screen. We also broke down from our macro range. Our macro range, in my view, was best identified by looking at the price cycles. So we look at these two lines, the one in orange and the one in yellow, from prior cycle highs and cutting across, both of which being majorly important, even in the recent price range. They're beyond the point of coincidence, going backwards from 2017 and 2021 respectively, and being resistance and support respectively. They found themselves being the basis of the macro range. Support right here in yellow from 2021 and resistance right here in orange from 2017. So both cyclically relevant lines, which is important for a cycle. Of course, we're looking at cyclical structures. And unfortunately, they broke down, right? Not only did they break down, but we broke other things with it. We broke down below the bull market support band, which we are still below to this very minute. We broke down below the pi cycle line, the high-low indicator, which you can see acted as a basis for support in those last days before the crash there. And we broke down on many, many other things in between. For example, momentum indicator, we had a massive triangle on the RSI, stemming all the way backwards from November, 3 months old, potentially even older. If you're going from the bottom, it could go all the way back to October. And we broke down very clearly there as well. After many retests of support, we just could not hold on any longer. And so now the question is, well, where is Bitcoin? What is Bitcoin doing now? Again, stop dwelling on the past. Let's look forward and let's look at the present. Well, we have, as we mentioned, this no man's land. And I call it that for a reason. It's because we have no price action here. We don't really know much about this price region. And the only way we can make predictions as analysts in the market and traders is by looking at historical data, okay? When we have no historical data, we can be very limited in what we can do in terms of making predictions because we don't have any data from the price range. We don't know where the support is. We don't know where the resistance is. We just skyrocketed past this entire range back here in November. We didn't dwell on it. So now, for the first real time ever, we're kind of sitting in this new price region, this fresh price range. And what Bitcoin's managed to do And it's good that it's done this. What it's managed to do is find support on the 200 simple moving average, the 200-day moving average, which is a important line on Bitcoin. It's a very commonly used indicator on Bitcoin. One of its most notable things it did recently, or in the last couple of years, was predict the not the double top, but the dead cat bounce top here in 2022. It also predicted the low on what a lot of people saw as a continuation of the bear market after a dead cat bounce in 2023, which is good to see. And between now and then, it hasn't done too much. It was a pretty important resistance zone here in 2023 as well. But overall, it's been kind of useless since 2023, and luckily it's finding some use now. So in this price region for which we had nothing to look at, we now have something to look at. It's that 200-day simple moving average. And it's not acting perfectly, but it clearly is a rough area of support. If we look at the short term, I can't really point out any particular short-term structure here. Perhaps we have an inverted head and shoulders pattern. I wouldn't be overly confident in saying it is that, but what I can do is I can identify a zone of resistance right here at 87,000, which you can see is acting as support and resistance there. So that is a critical breakout point to the upside. And I can also just identify the range low at 78,000, giving us another zone to look at. So we can start mapping out this no man's land. This entire region, which was previously something we had no data on whatsoever. We now have two levels, one being 87,000, a horizontal level, and one being the low at 78,000, and one being the indicator. So we're kind of slowly getting a feel for what this price region is and what it could hold for Bitcoin. But overall, we're still pretty much in the dark here. Now, it's interesting that Bitcoin found 87,000 as a resistance zone, because that's actually a little support zone from back here in November. So that, in my view, is clearly a breaker point to the upside. Another clear breaker point to the upside is going to be the bottom of the prior macro range itself in yellow. That's very, very clear, in my opinion. In the same way that Bitcoin needs to remain above 74K, because if it broke below 74K, it would re-enter the prior macro range, which would be detrimental at this part of the bull market. Breaking back into the prior macro range is a great step in the right direction for Bitcoin, and re-establishing that zone in yellow as support would be excellent for Bitcoin to do. So that is, in my view, what's first on the agenda for Bitcoin. We need to break back, firstly, above 87,000, but more importantly, we need to break back into the prior macro range. It's only through that that we can continue to be upside. Now, a major threat we may have in doing that is in typical bear markets. I'm not saying we're in a bear market, but I'm saying hypothetically here, in typical bear markets, what you generally see is a macro breakdown and then a retest of that macro support as resistance, a resistance support flip, and a continuation downwards. So as we approach that region in yellow, it's going to be drawing more and more of our attention by the day. We cannot afford to reject from that yellow level. If we even start to reject from that yellow level, that's an extremely bad sign for Bitcoin, and that could indicate the start of the bear market and validation for an actual larger breakdown on a cyclical level. So if Bitcoin does come up here in yellow, we need to see a clean break, and that's the first step, as I said, on the agenda for Bitcoin, breaking back into the prior macro range. That is the path to recovery right there. I personally would love to see Bitcoin as well salvaging this weekly candle. We have the bull market support band up here at around, let's just go ahead and see where it is exactly, 89,000. It would be excellent if Bitcoin could make a move up to 89,000 by the end of the day. Does it look likely? Look, it's hard to say. As I said, short-term charts could be resembling something like an inverted head and shoulders pattern, but I'm not expecting much, I'll be honest. Either way, it is going to be a bad weekly candle close, because we will be breaking below this 13-year ascending support line, and we will also be confirming our breakdown as a whole from the range itself on a weekly close. So it's not going to be a good weekly close regardless, unless Bitcoin can miraculously recover all the way back up, which seems heavily unlikely. But if we can, perhaps it's too optimistic, if we can go ahead and grab 89K back by the end of the day, at least we'll be back above that bull market support band. That would be great to see. Is it looking likely? Not particularly. So overall, just focusing on the road to recovery for Bitcoin, the first step of that recovery is going to be finding a basis of support above 78,000. We don't want to see another lower low. And with that basis of support above 78,000, we want to be breaking above back into the prior macro range. Moving on to the altcoin market. The altcoin market, all it needs to do right now, in my opinion, and this is absolutely critical, is it needs to close. And this is the total 3 cryptocurrency market cap, to be precise. Okay, so it's the entire market cap of altcoins as a whole, not Bitcoin, not Ethereum, but the entire altcoin market cap. it absolutely needs to hold this weekly candle above this ascending support level on the RSI. Forget about the price chart. The price chart is fine. We have a macro support in the price chart. We've dipped into it twice. We're holding it so far. It is the RSI that I'm absolutely majorly concerned about. We need to not break. We cannot afford to break down here on the weekly chart RSI for the altcoin market. Right now, we're above it. It's great to see. We need to be holding there, because the leverage from holding that support zone could give us the strength to bounce upwards again and see another macro move, which could take us to all-time highs in the altcoin market, which we have not even seen yet. We rejected from a 2021 high. Similar story on Ethereum. Ethereum holding on to macro support, and all we need to be seeing from this weekly candle is holding that macro support. A weekly close below this macro support zone will put us back into prices we haven't seen since 2023, which would be absolutely detrimental at this phase of the cycle. And as for the S&P 500, holding above the bull market support band here would be ideal. We'll update you on that situation tomorrow. It's not my main priority right now. I'm mainly focused on Bitcoin and on the altcoin market. So to recap, I want to see Bitcoin holding above 78,000. I don't want to go much lower than that. We know that the bull market basically ends below 70,000. 74,000 to 70,000 is really the last lane of defense before we re-enter the prime macro range, and that's just not typical of bull markets whatsoever in any fashion at all. And the amount of indicators we would have broken at that point, everything would be gone. Okay, so really, if we're talking strictly here, the lowest point Bitcoin can go on the macro, the absolute lowest point, is around 70,000. And we don't even want to be getting close to that realistically. So 78,000 here, that is our local bottom. Holding onto that local bottom and forming a move to the upside back into the prime macro range would be ideal. That is the path to recovery on Bitcoin. On altcoins, we just need to focus on holding this weekly chart ascending support line on the RSI, and on Ethereum, we just need to hold the macro support zone as well. If the altcoin market breaks down, Ethereum's likely to break down, and vice versa, and it could get very, very ugly for the altcoin market. And so it could get ugly for Bitcoin as well. They're all connected. So I'll keep you updated on the situation. I know there's not a lot of predictions going on in these videos in the last few days. There's not much to predict, guys. As I said, we're in a completely new price range. What I can say is this: we're still in a macro bull market. The cycle's still intact. We are in the 4-year cycle still. It's not broken yet. And so I do expect the move to the upside. I think that's still the likely scenario. So I do expect this recovery to take place. But just because I expect that based on the cycle, it doesn't mean I'm sitting here telling you to buy. I'm really not, actually. I think that this is not really the time to be buying. This is the time to be gathering data, waiting patiently, and waiting for upside validation. When the upside validation comes, that's when you're in a zone in which you can justify buys again. Remember, guys, as traders, as analysts, our job is to be like detectives looking for evidence, okay? There's always going to be pieces of evidence that don't match. There's always going to be pieces of evidence to the contrary. There's always going to be a case that the defense can make. But it's your job as the detective to gather as much data as possible to justify decisions. And right now, the only data we have justifying a buy is that the cycle is intact and we have local support. That's simply not enough. I want to have the cycle intact, I want to have local support, and I want to have a break back into the prime macro range, which we just saw a devastating collapse from. That would be enough to justify, in my view, jumping right back into this market. But guys, that's the video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please check out the Bitunix exchange, as I mentioned at the start of the video. Right, exchanges get hacked all the time. We just had Bybit a couple of weeks ago get hacked. One of the biggest cryptocurrency exchanges hacked for the largest amount that's ever been taken from cryptocurrency exchanges from a North Korean, I guess, institution or something like that. It was brutal. A lot of people lost a lot of money. You want to be on an exchange that doesn't get hacked, okay? And Bitunix, historically speaking, has never been hacked before. It's been around for close to 4 years, and that's a great track record. If they are hacked, they have reserves available, so you can get reimbursed on the funds you've lost, hypothetically, which is very, very good. They're global non-KYC. You can sign up from anywhere in the world, which is especially good for people in the USA. There's no VPN required, nothing like that. And with my referral link down below, you can get a 15% trading fee discount attached to your account for life. So go ahead and sign up. It takes 30 seconds with my link down below. I appreciate that. And the last thing I'll mention in this video before we end it off here is the VIP group on Telegram. If you want to get altcoin trading signals, I give them to you on Telegram 4 times a week. That group is coming to an end shortly in a couple of months. So this is really your last chance. The next few weeks should be your last chance to get in there if you're interested. 160 other VIP members. You can become one of them. Check it out, guys. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you soon.